Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon.
Pumped up on Mars, juice, and ketamine.
He is the Thomas Edison plus of our age.
Probably his whole life is from a position of insecurity. I feel for the guy.
I would say 98% really appreciate what he does, but those 2% that are nasty, they are out there in full force.
We are meant for great things in the United States of America, and Elon reminds us of that.
We don't have a fourth branch of government called Elon Musk.
Welcome to Elon Inc., Bloomberg's weekly podcast about Elon Musk. It's Tuesday, May 6th. I'm your host, David Papadopoulos. Now, Elon may be preparing to wind down his time in Washington, but Doge certainly isn't done yet. Just this past week, it stepped up its scrutiny of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and Elon's relationship with the powerful financial regulator has been, shall we say, tense. The two sides have squared off again and again over the years, and he stands to benefit enormously from a smaller and perhaps more lenient SEC. Meanwhile, Elon is on his way to founding his own brand spanking new city down along the Mexican border. Madlin Mekelburg will join us later to talk about the birth of Starbase, Texas. But we'll start with Doge and the SEC. And to do that, I'm here with our regulars, Business Week's Max Chafkin and ace Elon reporter Dana Hull. Max, Dana, welcome to you both.
Hey, David.
Hey, David.
And from Washington, D.C., we're joined by Nicola White, Bloomberg's SEC reporter. Nicola, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi there.
Okay, so Doge stepping up a bit its scrutiny of the SEC. Let's go back to the archives and remember what Musk said about the SEC years ago.
I want to be clear. I do not respect the SEC. I do not respect them.
Dana Hull, tell us a little bit more about those comments from Musk and help us set the stage here for Doge's incursion into the SEC now.
So Elon Musk has had a long-standing feud with the SEC stretching back years. Probably the highlight was in 2018, as you all may remember. In August, he attempted to take Tesla private. He tweeted out that he was, considering taking Tesla private at $4.20 a share. That got him into huge trouble with the SEC, that the SEC ultimately fined him $20 million, and he couldn't be chair of the company for at least 3 years. And he's just always been super angry at the SEC, particularly the office in San Francisco, and, at times has called them the short seller enrichment commission. And this is a guy who's not particularly fond of regulation. He sees it as holding back, industry and all of his enterprises. And now that he's a very powerful figure in the Trump administration, I think that he, of all of the agencies where Doge could really make its mark, I would think that the SEC would be the one that would have among the most importance to Musk and his companies. And the SEC has also investigated Musk's companies with Tesla and the way that it marketed autopilot. Nicola knows better than I do, but there are various probes that have been launched, and then it's not really clear what the status is, if they are still under active investigation, if they've died on the vine, if they've been referred to DOJ or AG offices. There are a lot of questions about what happened to those SEC investigations, and were the people leading those investigations, are they still even at the agency?
Yeah, and there's also a lawsuit against Musk for the way he didn't disclose his amassing of Twitter shares before he basically did a takeover bid. And that was filed days before Trump's inauguration. So it was like they squeaked it in right before the administrative change.
And as Dana was just alluding to, do we have a sense of where that one is, his purchase of Twitter shares before he launched a bid?
That is a question on everyone's mind. I think I know several people who have alerts set up for the docket for that case. Any movement in that case would be of high interest to anybody watching the SEC, anybody who's into following what's happening with Elon Musk. We don't have any update on that yet. And there's a lot of eyes on what happens to that case. The SEC is in a weird position. If they drop the case, wouldn't look good. If they go full throttle and try to sue Musk for hundreds of millions of dollars, that also might not look good. So they're in a very weird, uncomfortable position.
I want to go back for a second, Max, to what Dana was saying in calling the SEC in saying it doesn't stand for the Securities and Exchange Commission. Musk said it stands for the Short Seller Enrichment Commission.
There was also a vulgar one that he used that I'm not going to bring up on this podcast. But
well, you just did bring
this
it
is a
up.
family
what
show.
No, what was it?
No, it's all right. But anyway.
And as we know, there is no group of humans in the world who Elon Musk hates more than the short sellers. And in his mind, the SEC was just doing the bidding of the shorts. He also is called the SEC at one point, or he eked or tweeted about him, called them shameless puppets of Wall Street. Has there ever been a human who has been more at odds and feuded more with the SEC than Elon Musk?
Well, not that I'm aware of. I mean, the way Elon Musk runs his companies is sort of like totally opposed to everything that the SEC stands for. Like Elon Musk's empire is a web of conflicts of interest, lots of self-dealing, weird shared ownership stakes. Like Musk is a sort
weird midnight tweets.
Yeah, right. And it's just like a whole bunch of things that like are not in keeping with the way, the sort of conventional wisdom about how public company CEOs are supposed to act. Now, the one thing I'll say is this is not like a secret. And that's what was kind of always made these disputes with the SEC kind of funny. It's not like, most Tesla investors and most of the investors who are in Musk companies understand this about him, understand that he's different, and that's why they like him. And so it is this kind of weird thing where Musk like seems to continually either violate securities law or walk right up to the line where I don't know, like a neutral observer would probably think he was violating securities law. And the SEC has really struggled to land a glove on him effectively. In other words, they've fined him, they've
fined him like $20 million, right?
But he hasn't ever changed his behavior. He just goes from one, it's like a rich guy who gets caught speeding in his Lamborghini, right? It's like he pays a ticket and he keeps on driving.
But wasn't he also forced to step down in his chair of Tesla coming out of one of these lawsuits?
Yeah, but well, yeah, he was forced. But so what, David? He's still on the board. I mean, it's still his board. He's still the largest shareholder. So yeah, he stepped down his chair. Now Robin Denholm is the chair, but he's still on the board.
It sounds like a big deal, but it actually doesn't mean anything.
He had a Twitter sitter, remember? Like the SEC made him get a guy. And we always wondered who's the guy who's got to like vet Elon Musk's tweets.
Poor guy.
And for a while it seemed like maybe it was possible that this was actually happening. I don't know. It doesn't. Let me just say, it doesn't seem like the Twitter sitter was empowered to
the SEC
to do a lot of sitting.
I forgot about that the SEC made somebody walk around with his phone as if that were the person carrying the codes to the nuclear warheads that the president has or something. But Nicola, I want to go back now to the arrival of Doge at the SEC as it's happened in recent months, like in, branches of government across Washington. Any sort of sense that you have of what the mood was like there as this longtime nemesis of the SEC now had all this influence over it?
Yeah, so I think that there was a lot of bracing for impact. And everybody was freaked out about the arrival of Doge and what it would mean, just given Elon Musk's extremely public, it's out there. He does not like the SEC, and the fact that he has active litigation with the agency. And I feel like there was a lot more anxiety versus like what has actually transpired.
What has actually transpired?
So Doge arrived later than any other, it seemed like any other agency. At the beginning, USAID got gutted, the CFPB got gutted. There has been headline after headline about drama at the IRS and privacy and records and things like that. And the Doge arrived at the SEC with much, much less fanfare. It was initially one guy, and the leadership at the SEC was like, hey guys, Doge is in the building. It wasn't so much cloak and dagger. An email went out staff wide and it said, there is a liaison, or there's liaisons in the agency with the Doge person, proceed.
Remind me, who is the Doge person? I've kind of lost track. We have this spreadsheet of all the Doge people and how they're tied to Elon, and I'm blanking on
It's not big balls, is it?
No. So this is someone, his name is Eli Mashori, and he is a former CFTC attorney. And CFTC is another DC financial regulator that regulates derivatives. And he most recently was at Kalshi, which is an online trading.
It's like a predictions
I don't want to call it
market,
betting.
Backed by major venture capital
market,
firms.
yeah.
A big, like a Silicon Valley-backed startup.
Yes. So he was in there and, Doge was like, we're looking for efficiencies. But there has not been the crazy headlines of, people, going in and ripping things up or walking out with file boxes and things like that. I think that's, by design in a lot of ways, because we all knew that Musk has well-known beef with the SEC.
So hold on, just to pause there for a second. So you're saying it's by design. It's known that Musk has feuded quite a bit with them. So you're saying what? Because it would be such a bad look that they opted to not go that route?
Yeah, and the other thing too is that the leadership at the SEC, so now we have a permanent chair, but there was an interim chair.
Remind us of who that is.
So the new chair is Paul Atkins, and the interim chair was Mark Uyeda. And he kind of did a lot of restructuring before Doge arrived. And there were voluntary buyouts, and then there was this more unusual one-time $50,000, resign early kind of payout dangle to SEC employees. And the other thing to remember is that the SEC has an awful lot of power, but it's a pretty small agency. It's only 5,000 employees. And more than 500 employees, so more than 10%, have taken these voluntary buyouts. So how much more can you kind of cut? And then also,
I don't know. I think if you ask Musk, he'd like to count 5,000 employees.
Yeah. You also got to keep in mind that the SEC is Wall Street's main regulator. Yeah. Who likes chaos in the markets? We've seen that Trump does not like that. If you cut the SEC down to the bare bones and there's chaos, that doesn't look good. So I think there's been a little bit of let's take a lighter touch at the SEC. I mean, that's to be seen, right? Full impact yet. But so
as you were saying, initially there was just one person from Doge there, and then I think a second was added. And I saw some reporting last week that we're now up to a third person from Doge at the SEC. Is that right?
Yeah, I've seen that reporting also. But again, there has been much less kind of people freaking out and chatter.
I think just to step back, one thing that has happened during the first few months of the Trump administration that I don't think Elon Musk anticipated, and I don't think Tesla investors anticipated, is that Trump has hesitated to directly expose himself in ways that would be politically damaging. So he hasn't handed Musk a bunch of cash. He hasn't directly dropped cases against Musk companies. It does feel like there's hesitancy to do things that would look like we are just paying back a guy who bought, who helped us win this election, who put up, $300 million or so in contributions related to the election, and here's the payback. They don't want to do that. And of course, it's reasonable why they wouldn't want to do that, because that would be a very, very bad look. It'd be a very bad look to cut the regulator of Wall Street at a time where there's tons of anger on both sides because the world's richest man wanted them to. And so I think if we're seeing restraint, the restraint that we're seeing has to do with the politics of this.
Yep. Nicola, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you again down the road.
Thanks for having me.
And now we're joined by Madlin Mekelburg, our Texas legal reporter. Madlin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Madlin, tell us all about the formation of this place, Starbase, and about the vote that happened last week, and then give us a super abbreviated history of what led to it.
Try to be abbreviated, but I could talk about this forever. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to do it today. It is incredibly fascinating, but basically the idea for Starbase started in Texas more than a decade ago when SpaceX first started buying land in the very southern tip of the state along the Gulf of Mexico / America. And they really started building in earnest in 2018, and they've created this community of a giant rocket manufacturing facility, a testing site, and a launch site for SpaceX's Starship rocket. And essentially what you have there is this huge futuristic production facility, and then dozens of tiny houses and Airstream trailers where employees of SpaceX live with their families, their partners. It used to be a really quiet retirement community, kind of in the middle of nowhere in Texas. It's really far out there. But over this past decade period, SpaceX has been building, they've been growing, and all that growth culminated in a vote this past weekend where residents overwhelmingly supported an initiative to create their own city and local government.
Elon won an election, Max.
He finally got it.
Well,
when you fail in Wisconsin to southern Texas.
There you go. Now,
I will say, I believe almost all the voters work for Elon Musk.
Is that right? All of them, Madlin?
Like 90%? I don't know, Madlin.
That's correct. Yes, that is exactly right. They all either work for Elon or have a loved one who works for Elon for the most part.
Madlin did find the one guy. I mean, there are a handful of holdouts in this community, but they're essentially like the people...
Homer Papa, right?
Yeah, he is a great character. Tell us about him for a second, Madlin.
That's right. Homer represents the old guard and what this community used to be, which was, like I mentioned, a retirement community, but also a place for people who just wanted to get away from everybody else. It's like a 20-mile drive from the closest city, which is Brownsville, which is, to call it a city, reserve judgment on that.
In air quotes.
In air quotes, exactly. But basically, Homer has lived there since the 70s. And as he told us, he used to be able to walk naked down the beach, down the road. He was totally by himself down there in this nature preserve. And so he is part of this really small group, this dwindling group of landowners who have been there since before SpaceX and who have refused to turn their property over to Elon and their efforts, basically. So they kind of represent this last resistance to the Starbase vote. But obviously that resistance is really tiny in number.
Regular listeners will know we've talked about this a couple times on the podcast. Like Madlin's saying, it was kind of, I think, served as sort of like the working man's beach for Brownsville. Like it was a place where anyone could go. Yes. It was open to the public. And it was also full of these kind of like, sort of hippy-dippy-ish older folks who moved to the beach and like this guy that Madlin is describing, sort of living an off-the-grid bohemian lifestyle. And all of a sudden...
The life we all aspire to.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, like, these gigantic rockets are going off there all the time, and the ground is literally shaking.
Right, and it's suddenly become like almost the most futuristic or one of the most futuristic places on Earth. So Madlin, until this weekend, or perhaps even including now, I don't know how things work post-vote, this whole area was just unincorporated. If someone's home burned down or was burning down, there was no fire department. There was no or did they lean on Brownsville for that sort of thing?
Yeah, they were unincorporated, but it wasn't like they were totally off by themselves. Basically, how it works in Texas is if you're not a city, the local government authority that is over all those things is the county. So in this case, that's Cameron County. And they've kind of reached an equilibrium with them as far as offering public services. They do have fire service out there. They do have electricity and utilities and water and all those things that make it pleasant to live in a house. But right, they have not had a local city government up to this point.
Madlin, do you see this effort by Elon to create his own city as part of like this larger push? There's a lot of talk about freedom cities and like the network state. Like, what is his grand ambition? Is it just that like they wanted it to be easier to build housing for their employees, or is he going to start like building schools and creating his own like Starbase police force? Like, how grand of a scheme is this?
That is the question. Basically, you and your listeners will be unsurprised to know that we got basically no information from SpaceX about this, no information from the candidates running for public office about what their big vision is. But you talked about housing and building, and I think that is really the primary and immediate thing that we're going to see happen in this case. What they have said is that they want to be able to control the pace of their own growth and development in the region. At this point, if they want to build anything new, they have to get permission from Cameron County.
And has Cameron County pushed back or slowed them down?
Well, we know that about a month before they requested this election, Cameron County rejected a proposal by SpaceX to build multiple townhouses on a few different lots. And so at that time, an engineer for SpaceX basically said, we have hundreds of people on a wait list who are dying to come live out here in our little community, we promise. And we really need to be able to build as much housing as we can. And so they haven't come out and said explicitly, we're frustrated by the pace of approvals and the rejection we're getting from Cameron County. But that's kind of the unspoken idea here of what initiated this effort.
So who is the mayor? Like the city now has like 3 elected officials, right? So who exactly is the mayor again?
That's right. So they've created, it's a city commission technically, and it's got a mayor and 2 city commissioners, all of whom are current or former SpaceX employees. The mayor is a guy named Bobby Peden, and I can pull up his title for you. He's the vice president of Texas Test and Launch down in Starbase, and that's from his LinkedIn page because he did not answer my many phone calls and emails and letters sent to his address.
I mean, we all know who the mayor really is going to be, right? He's down to 5 companies with the merger.
And he's the guy with like the huge statue of his face there. Is it that one? Tell us, by the way, about the statue. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's as you drive out there, it's a really surreal experience because you go from a city to basically nothing for many miles on this highway. And there's a bunch of trees on the side of the road. And then all of a sudden the trees go away and you see a big gold bust of Mr. Musk's head. And it's right next to these.
Oh, it's gold.
It's a color gold, maybe bronze. I don't know the exact metal material. Please don't quiz me about that. But
wait, is it full body or just the head?
No, it's just the head, actually.
Okay.
No, just the head, shoulders up. I think they're shoulders, a neck at least. But it's sitting right next to also these 2 big concrete slabs that have some art of the Doge dog and then another portrait of Elon as well. So it greets you as you're driving out there.
Just like Homer likes to hang out with his dogs, as you guys told us, or so too does Elon the bust hang out with his Doge dogs. How tall is this thing, Madlin?
That's a really great question. Very tall? I don't have an exact measurement for you, but it's imposing, we'll say.
Max, this is all, though, of course, part of a broader, I don't know if campaign's the term, but initiative by Musk to put his stamp on Texas all across the state, no?
Yeah, and not just Texas, but to kind of present himself as he long has, as this kind of industrial titan, as this guy who's, making a lot of industry from as he sees it, nothing. I mean, one of the weirdest parts of the story, as we've talked about it before, is, as Musk saw it, he just sort of spun the globe and, put his finger on a map where it looked like it wasn't totally inhabited. Of course, there were people there, but just not that many. And creating this kind of beacon of American rocketry and private industry, you can see how this could, assuming they're able to build a bunch of houses and continue growing this community and this headquarters or whatever it is, the launch site, it's going to be a real monument to Elon Musk, and not just because of the of the bus. Are the residents going to have his portrait in their home?
I mean, I don't know if have to. Probably strongly encouraged to. Madlin, next steps that we will be seeing coming out of Starbase on its way to full proper municipality.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff that has to be worked out, honestly. When you create a city, Texas gives a lot of leeway to cities to determine what they want to do and what they want to offer. So this city council is going to have to sit down and decide, do we want to have a library system? Do we want to have parks?
No.
Do we want to, what do
Keep going. What else?
That's a great guess. We'll see what happens. They're going to have to decide. A huge question is going to be money. If they want to do anything, they're going to need money. Traditionally, cities make money by imposing property taxes on its residents. But SpaceX owns practically all of the property in this area, and its employees rent from it. So it will be, if they do impose a property tax, it's a tax that SpaceX is largely going to pay. But we know also that cities can accept donations from a friendly company that maybe has an interest in the community. So that's something that we could look out for. I don't know if anyone has.
I wonder what company that might be.
Yeah, there's a lot to choose from down there, so it could be anyone. But they'll have to publicly disclose it. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing, if I can just say an aside about what I'm personally excited about this city, is that unlike a company, a government is, in theory, supposed to be open. They have to have open meetings. They have to maintain public records that they turn over to friendly reporters when they file open records requests. So I think that's going to be one of the first real tests of how this city is operating. But that also involves them making decisions about, who are we going to hire to manage these records? Where are we going to house these records? Are they going to create a city hall? Like, there's a ton of unanswered questions that, while legally they may be a city now,
I mean, it's a potentially like a huge economic boon for this community. And I'm not just talking about Starbase. I'm talking about the larger South Texas community.
Right.
But it's something that's going to remake the geography, the way it feels, and of course the culture.
Yeah, I mean, I guess all these places now we're going to have all these huge busts of Musk. Madlin, by the way, so Starbase itself, it's a teeny tiny area, right? This town, it's got to be one of the smaller towns in the country. Just over a mile?
Yeah, it's 1.45 square miles, and it's really like long and narrow along the state highway. It's very odd.
That is indeed super odd. Madlin, this was terrific. You will have to come back again and tell us, as the town of Starbase grows and booms and they add and build more and more. We'll have you back on.
That would be fabulous. Thanks for having me.
Now, Max and Dana, I actually had a plan to do like a sort of serious feud segment here at the end. Elon versus his very own Tesla board, because, as reported by the Wall Street Journal, the Tesla board has been, doing a little bit of a CEO search, thinking about maybe, just in case we need to replace this guy, which was kind of interesting. But, Max, you think you found something bigger, more important than Elon Musk versus his very own Tesla board.
Just two words on that CEO search. The board has disputed that, right? They've said that they are not conducting a CEO search. Elon is the Elon is the CEO.
And the Journal is essentially saying that they're stand by their story.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I just want to say that Tesla's board has kicked the tires on finding a new CEO before. This came up during this came up in court in Delaware Chancery Court during the dispute about his pay package, where Antonio Gracias and James Murdoch, who, current and former board members, basically said, oh, yeah, we've looked for CEOs before, but, we just could never find anyone with the vision and the drive to, lead the company. So Elon is the CEO. And I think that this is kind of what happened here. I think it's a great scoop by the Wall Street Journal, but, the board has kicked the tires on trying to find someone new in the past. It sounds like they've done it again. But the story said that they were, looking to hire a search firm, not that they how wide and serious this attempt was this time is not clear.
All right. The real feud, though. Forget the board of the world's biggest company, maybe attempting to replace the world's richest man. The real feud is between Elon Musk and the Westlake Hills homeowners association, or whatever the homeowners of this community in Texas where Elon Musk has relocated.
Not near Starbase, a different.
No, this is a sort of, suburban, upper middle class suburb in Austin where Elon Musk has a home, and the New York Times has a absolutely hilarious story about Elon Musk's battle with some of the residents who, unsurprisingly, you spend a lot of money on your, suburban home, you pay property taxes, whatever. It's not great when a rich, kind of erratic, late night partying, late night flying guy shows with a huge security detail, shows up in your community. They put up a giant fence around this home. Residents are mad about that. There's a gate to let staff in and out of this property that Elon Musk owns. They're not happy about that. And
because they think it's an eyesore? What's the issue?
It's a lot of traffic and so on. Yeah, it's an eyesore. Oh, yeah, they're, as many of these residents see it, they're violating lots of the sort of homeowners associate, the zoning rules for this community.
Yeah, Westlake Hills in Austin is like it's like the Atherton. It's like Atherton. It's like it is the place where the wealthy. It's like it's the wealthy, hilly, leafy area of Austin that's near the Colorado River, and it's where Elon now lives. It's where Elon supposedly was building this compound. The idea was that he had like a house and then multiple houses with this sort of vision that eventually maybe all of his, female friends and children would potentially all live together. Right. But that hasn't really worked out because they're not all living with him.
Yeah, wait, let me get to the feud. So Paul Hemmer, Tesla owner, longtime resident, got so frustrated with Elon Musk's comings and goings and construction, he got a drone. He flew it over the house to check for violations. He started reporting those violations to local officials, and Elon Musk hit back with his own complaints about Paul Hemmer, saying that
he's flying drones over my house.
Okay, what they said is that he was walking around the community naked. Mr. Hemmer denies he was just wearing black underwear. Now, there was a second allegation that he peed on the street, and now Hemmer...
Didn't he piss while he was walking his dog? So
in response to the query from the New York Times, Mr. Hemmer said, "The cameras got me. It's scary they have guys sitting and watching me pee." So he copped to that one. I don't know, he disputing the charge of nakedness, but this is, of course,
sometimes you just gotta go. Yeah,
I mean, no one's on the street. I'm sort of somewhat sympathetic to Paul Hemmer's complaint.
I'm not entirely sure it's better than Elon versus the Tesla board, but it is good. All right, Max, do keep reporting this out.
I guess it's just like a lesson to all of us. Like, before you complain about your billionaire neighbor's gate, make sure your own house is in order.
Max, Dana, thanks as always.
Okay, guys, that was great.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
This episode was produced by Stacey Wong. Blake Maples handles engineering and Dave Purcell fact checks. Our editor is Anna Masarakis, and our supervising producer is Magnus Henriksen. The Elon Inc. theme is written and performed by Taka Yasuzawa and Alex Sugiura. Brendan Francis Newnham is our executive producer, and Sage Bauman is the head of Bloomberg Podcasts. A big thanks, as always, to our supporters Joel Weber and Brad Stone. I'm David Papadopoulos. If you have a minute, rate and review our show. It'll help other listeners find us. See you next week.